Hello and welcome to my weekly video blog, and today on A Vogel Talks Menopause I'm going to be talking about how does the menopause affect your pelvic floor muscles. If you like my tips and advice, then please subscribe and remember to hit the bell icon so you can be notified of all my new videos. Like many areas of our health, the pelvic floor muscles can be affected during the menopause, and it's very often due to low estrogen affecting muscle strength. So as well as you losing muscle strength maybe from your legs or your wrists, it can also affect some of the internal muscles too. So what I'm going to do today is look at how this can happen, the symptoms associated with pelvic floor muscle dysfunction, and some of the things that you can do to help yourself. So in really simple terms, falling estrogen can affect our muscle strength. So muscles just get that bit weaker. The problem with the pelvic floor muscles, now they're the muscles that they're like a sling, so they're connected to both sides of your hip, and they're almost there to help to support your uterus, so that's the womb, your bladder and your bowel. So everything is held up like this in a sort of muscular sling. If this muscular sling weakens, then these organs can shift and they can cause all sorts of problems. So the main symptoms here, first of all, are urinary incontinence. So if there's a slight shift in where these organs are sitting, this can affect bladder function. It can squash the bladder a bit, which means that you can't hold as much urine, so you end up running to the toilet a lot more. It may affect the valve on the bladder. So if your bladder valve gets weaker, if you might find if you laugh or if you run or do exercises that you basically leak a little bit of urine. It can also cause what's called urinary urgency. So that means you could be going about your daily business quite happily, and then just suddenly you get this immense urge to go to the toilet. You're thinking, oh, I've got to find a toilet. And you might not be able to hold everything in. So you can end up again getting a urine leakage. Secondly, it can be vaginal dryness and irritation. Again, the slight change in muscle position can affect the vagina. It can make the walls weaker, and that can then cause dryness and irritation. It could be frequent urinary or vaginal infections. So that would be things like cystitis. You might find that you're getting cystitis again and again and again, and you take antibiotics and it clears up for a little while and then it comes back again. You may find that you're getting thrush regularly, and again, you're taking antibiotics, everything clears up for a little bit and then everything starts again. And the problem here is that the vagina and the bladder are closely interlinked as far as bacterial infections go. So if you get something like vaginal thrush, you get antibiotics which kill off the friendly bacteria in the vagina, and the friendly bacteria in the vagina help to protect bladder infections as well. So these two, a lot of women find that this just becomes a real vicious cycle between one and the other. There can also be pelvic pain and discomfort during intercourse. It can either be, if there's dryness, then obviously penetration may be really uncomfortable, but it can also be quite a deep internal pain. And some women find that they may actually bleed after intercourse as well. And again, that can be due to the fact that everything has shifted. So the vagina is not sitting correctly. And if it's slightly to one side or tilted backwards or forwards, then that's obviously going to cause a lot of discomfort too. So just be aware of the connections with these ones. It could be what's called a pelvic floor or a pelvic organ prolapse. So here, either the bladder, the uterus, or the bowel can completely change position. Very often this will put a lot of pressure on the vagina. It could even basically squash the vagina. What can happen too, again, if there's a bladder shift, you're going to get all that bladder discomfort. If it's a bowel shift, you may then find that you can't empty your bowel when you go to the toilet. Your bowel habits may shift. You may get a lot of discomfort. You may get diarrhea. You could get constipation. So the whole regular bowel habits tend to change completely. And for some women too, there might be slight bleeding when you empty the bowels. And that's something that obviously needs medical attention. The problem with pelvic floor weakness is that the risks tend to increase with age. So the older you get, the weaker these muscles become, and the more prone you may be to any of these particular symptoms. So what can you do here to help yourself? This is one. Some countries are so fabulous in pelvic floor health. A lot of women in some countries are given the exercises to do after childbirth, because this is one thing that can start to weaken the pelvic floor is having children, unfortunately. So this can, if you're taught early enough, then that can have a huge positive impact on pelvic health. For this, I would suggest Pilates. Go and see a practitioner. I went to a really interesting lecture by a very well qualified Pilates instructor who was focusing on women's health and pelvic health. And she said the problem is that women are Googling, they're seeing how to do Kegel exercises. And she said if they do it wrong, it can make everything worse. So this is one instance. If you're having issues here, I would recommend going to see a Pilates instructor, and you may only need a few lessons. You could even maybe get together with your other menopausal friends and have a few seconds so that you know what you're doing is the correct way to do it. And this can sometimes make a real difference, because the only other option is an operation. And, you know, we know what's happened with all these mesh implants as well, which were often used for this particular situation. So, you know, even if you're in your early 40s and you're watching this, be prepared now, get this sorted now, and it will save you so many tears in the future if you can get to strengthen your pelvic floor muscles. There are also certain yoga exercises that you can do regularly that can be very, very helpful. But again, I would go to classes for this just to make sure that you're doing it absolutely the proper way for the best results. Avoid high impact exercises. If you're jogging, then the whole pelvic area is going to be moving up and down, and that can really aggravate the situation. So you would be looking at maybe more gentle exercises like swimming, walking, yoga. Make sure you're getting plenty of water, and also you're eating plenty of fiber-rich foods to avoid constipation if your bowel is being affected in this situation. Supplements and herbs can be really helpful for the physical results of this. So if it's vaginal dryness and irritation, you've got your sea buckthorn oil, you've got a good vaginal probiotic. If it's more to do with cystitis, you could look at the herb Uva ursi. We do an Uva ursi complex, and this herb is known to be very helpful for bladder infections such as cystitis. Avoid irritants too. You know, so many women are washing these delicate areas with highly chemical soaps and shower gels and body washes. So make sure that you're using natural ingredients in this area, and that can certainly help with irritation and any kind of inflammation. When do you need to see the doctor with this? any pain during or after intercourse, any bleeding after intercourse, it's really important. If you're getting very deep pelvic pain, if you feel that there's a lot of pressure, especially when you sit down, if you get a dragging feeling, if you actually feel that your whole vulval area is changing and maybe expanding, that can indicate that the organs above are starting to press down and put pressure on the vagina. So it's really important to get all these ones checked out. If you're getting a lot of deep pain, if you're also getting very low back pain, that can be a sign that the pelvic area is being affected. So it's really important to get this one checked out. The doctor may offer local estrogen cream or estrogen pessaries. For some women, this is maybe the only option because their discomfort, I've had so many women, some of them in tears because there has been so much discomfort. So, it's a horrible one, but if you can get in with those pelvic floor exercises as young as possible, especially if you've had children, then it can prevent a lot of these symptoms occurring as you get older. I hope you found this one helpful and interesting. If any of you have had any of these conditions, did you find something that really helped you? If so, please share them because we would really love to help anybody who's in this particular situation. And until then, I will see you next week for another edition of AVOG Talks Menopause.